Merry Christmas. I start saying Merry Christmas as soon as Thanksgiving's over. I'm a bit of a Christmas nut, but it is my privilege to be here today, to see all of you and to be among friends. And it is just really a high honor for me to get to introduce Scott Turner to you all. When I learned he was coming, I texted JoAnn. I said, "Who's introducing Scott?" I said, "I'm going to ask a favor, and I would like to be able to introduce Scott, because I've been around politics for a while, and you get to meet a lot of men and women who are in elected office, and you get close to them, and you see how they work, and you see what they're like, and you see their character. And some of them, you're just not so impressed. But then there's some that not only are you impressed, but that you feel a connection with, you become friends with, you become just bonded to. And that's the way Scott and I have become. We've grown to be friends. Our wives are friends, and we keep up with each other. And let me tell you something about Scott. How many of you have heard him speak before? And you know what a dynamic speaker he is, and how he shares his faith and his life story, and you see his heart. Well, that's the way he is on the House floor. That's the way he is in the back office when we're just trying to figure out how we're going to vote today, what we're going to deal with, when we're beat down, when we're struggling. Scott is the same Scott that you get on the stage, you get him in the back office. And to me, that is just so special. Go back to last election, and before we went into office in January, going into the session, we had just had one of the worst budgets that any Republican group had ever put together. You saw a historic number of Republicans vote against it. You saw the entire regular session go without a single pro-life bill coming to the House floor. And I'm talking about a bill to protect babies at 20 weeks in the womb. And in the House, we had challenge after challenge, conservative piece of legislation after conservative piece of legislation that had been pushed aside, blocked, and a budget that just blew through everything. And when you looked around to say, okay, who are some of these conservatives that have been in office 4 or 5 times? Ones that know everybody and have got the seniority that could step up and run and challenge the leadership and say, here is a conservative Christian that you can vote for Speaker of the House. Nobody. Nobody. Nobody would stand up. But Scott Turner said, I will stand up. Regardless of the outcome, regardless of the pressure, regardless of what people are going to say about me, I'm going to run. And I'll never forget the day I found out he was running, because I was about to start a debate with Skip Ogle. And we were in this room, and David Simpson walks in, and before we started, he whispers to me, Scott Turner's just filed for Speaker. And my heart just filled. Because I knew if there was anybody in the House that had the courage to take it all the way to the House floor and say, oh yes, the sky will not fall if we actually take a vote. And it was Scott Turner. And he did it with integrity. He gave us somebody to vote for. You know, I don't want to just vote against somebody. Okay? I want to vote for someone. And Scott gave us that opportunity. So, you know, Scott is going to be leaving the legislature because he's felt led of the Lord to continue with his family activities, his ministry activities, and he's sending him a different direction. And I trust that Scott is following the Lord's lead on that. But, you know, I feel a twinge of sadness in my heart that we're not going to have him in the session. But I'm thankful that I don't lose him as a friend, and that he always answers my phone when I call, and that he is going to continue to be a part of the conservative movement, a part of those believers and those Christians around the state that are standing up and saying, you can say just what Scripture says. You can believe and do just what Scripture says, and you will find friends, And you may not be where the world wants you to be and go where the world wants you to go, but you will be doing the right thing, and it's okay to do that. You can lead. You can lead based on conservative Christian values. And he's an example to young people and to me and to others. And so, folks, you're in for a treat. And I'm just so thankful to have my dear friend Scott Turner here. Come on up, Scott.
Can y'all hear me? Not yet?
You gotta turn it on.
How about now? A little better. Can y'all hear me? Yes. Can you hear me good? No. Well, sure. How about now?
There you go.
Is that better?
Critical cramp.
Well, I think so. I don't have my glasses on, but I think. Yes, sir. It's on. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And Miss JoAnn, thank you for asking me to come. It's such a blessing to me. And you're a blessing to all of us.
Amen.
But to me in particular, I thank you. And thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for praying for me. And for all of you that are part of this wonderful organization, I want to say thank you to you too, because I know many of you have been praying for me and Matt and Brian and Cole and all of us who represent you and advocate on your behalf. And it's just such a great honor to be here, and I'm very humble. Schaefer, thank you. I love you, man. Thank you for your kind words. And I was honored to be able to stand and to run that race last year. And I have zero regrets about it. I'm glad. Because I knew what the Lord was calling me to do. And I did want to give the people of Texas a voice and to give people in the house someone and something to vote for. And so I'm grateful for it. And as Matt said, and I'll address this from the outset, I am going to leave the legislature. I'm not running for re-election when my term is up in 2017. I have a 15-year-old nephew who my wife and I adopted. His name is Solomon. We adopted him when he was 8 years old. And for the last 4.5 years, I've been gone for most of that time. And I felt that during session, as my wife said, that he's asking for you every day and asking when you're going to come home. That my number one responsibility is to train and to disciple my family and be effective there and to make sure he's the young man that God has called him to be. And I remember the Lord telling me, he said, you know, your obedience to me will affect everyone around you, as well as your disobedience to me will affect everyone around you. And you have to be willing to walk away from something that the world seems is so good in order to obey the voice of the Lord. And so that's where I am in this season. I just have a different assignment, but I'm not going anywhere. It's just a time of preparation and rejuvenation, and then we'll see in the next couple of years what the Lord does. Is that all right? Amen. So thank y'all. And I want to say hello to my dear friend, Brian Hughes, who has stood with us for the last 4 years, who's a wonderful representative for this area and a great man of God, and also stood with me during that speaker's race and gave one of my speeches. And also Cole Hefner, that's running. We all love Cole. And God bless you, Cole, in your race. I can't see where you are, but there you are, brother. So God bless you. And also Sheriff. I saw the Sheriff here and the other gentleman running. God bless you guys for your service. But I wanted today, I don't want to take a whole lot of time, but I want to encourage you, if I can. We all know what's happening in our country. We all see it. God has ordained this particular group to do wonderful, mighty work in the community. You're a great blessing to all of us. You're a sounding board, and you all are advocates for us. And so my hope today is that I can encourage your hearts to keep standing and to see where our country is and where my heart is for our country going forward. And I thought about the term value. When you think about the term value, what comes to your mind? A lot of people say a value is a good deal. I got a value on something, and it is. Some people say, well, values or principles or morals that we stand for. And so I looked up the word value, and it means this: to regard that something is held to deserve the importance or the worth or the usefulness of something. The regard that something is held to deserve the importance, the worth, or the usefulness of something. And I want to speak to you just for a little while about being salt and light and stepping up and stepping out in this term value, because I was contemplating this question. Do Christian values, Christian principles, Christian people, do we bring worth? Do we bring value? Do we bring merit to our society today? And it's a great question for all of us to contemplate. As Grassroots America and your vision to restore our country back to its Judeo-Christian principles, do those principles, do you as men and women of this particular organization, corporately and yes, individually, do you bring importance to society today? Those of us who believe this way, those of us who advocate for principles such as love and faithfulness, integrity, virtue, honor, honesty, courage, humility, do these principles and others, do we bring profit? Do we bring gain? Do we bring merit to our culture today? It's a question that all of us should contemplate. Many people would say, well, you know what, those principles are old school. Those principles are obsolete. Those principles are archaic. They're not applicable to today. And anyone who believes in those principles are one and the same, a foregone conclusion. They say that these principles are old school. How many of y'all like old school? Amen. These principles are not obsolete. They're not archaic. They're not trendy. Instead, they transcend, if you will, generations. They transcend culture. These principles transcend gender, race, ethnicity, political parties, factions within political parties. These principles are not old school and trendy or archaic. They are indeed applicable to today, and they are useful. They do allow us to bring salt and light to our culture today. Would you agree? Yes. The question is, are we willing to break the strongholds of apathy? Are we willing to break the strongholds of lethargy and fear? How many of y'all get tired? Honestly, how many of y'all been fighting this fight for a long time? Has lethargy ever set in? Has apathy ever set in? Or anxiety or fear ever set in? We can't allow those things to become a stronghold in our life, because we do bring worth, we do bring merit to our culture today. Benjamin Franklin, he was the most unorthodox of all the founding fathers. And he said this, and I read this quote, and I often quote that. He said, listen, he who introduces into public affairs the principles of primitive Christianity will change the face of the world. He who introduces into public life the principles of primitive Christianity will change the face of the world. And I thought to myself, America is in need of a facelift. Amen. Would you agree? It's time. The question is, are we willing? Do we have the fortitude? Do we have the faith to continue to step out? Look at what surrounds us in our world today. And I just wrote a few. Mega poverty, abortion, national debt, state debt, local debt, crime, global terrorism, terrorism right here at home, the breakdown of the family, the threat on our churches, religious liberties and religious freedoms, murders, people living in constant fear, anxiety, depression. Sin is running rampant in our culture today. The depravity of moral goodness. The fractioning of the very fiber and fabric of our nation. How about you? Are you willing? I would say you are. You're here today. Are you willing to introduce these principles and live out your Christian faith in your sphere of influence and be salt and light in our culture right now? Not just amongst us, not just in the confines of this group, or in people that think like you, or talk like you, but wherever the Lord is calling you, whatever your assignment is, whatever your sphere of influence is. Not out of arrogance, not out of a forceful attitude, but in love and compassion for those who may be different than us, those who may not think the same of us, those that are around us in our state or in our country. Are you willing? Romans chapter 8 verse 19 says, "For the anxious longing of the creation waits eagerly for the sons of God to be revealed." For the anxious longing of creation waits eagerly for the revealing of the sons of God, true servant leaders, people who are sold out in spite of what it looks like. Regardless of what pop culture is saying, regardless of what we see on TV, and regardless of what Hollywood says, our society is hurting. Would you agree? Our society is truly longing for the truth, searching, if you will, groaning, if you will, in expectation for the true sons and the true daughters of God to be revealed. Those who are willing to stand up and be bold and courageous in spite of the consequences. Those who are willing to stand up for the truth, even if you have to stand all alone. Proverbs 23:23 says, "Buy the truth and do not sell it." Truth always wins. Society would say, well, truth is relevant. It's not. Are you willing to stand for truth even if you stand all alone? The time is now. The harvest is ripe. There is no better time than the present. Creation is longing for the true sons of God to be revealed. I'm reminded of one year when I was playing for the San Diego Chargers. And we had an awful season. We were 1-15. That's 1 win and 15 losses. And we didn't win a game until week 12 of the season. So you can imagine going 12 weeks of the season and not winning a game. But we had to work just as hard. We had to train just as hard. We had to watch film just as often. We still got hurt. We still got injured. We still had to sit in the ice tub. We still had to get treatment. We still had to go home and pay our mortgages and take care of our families and go to work every day at 6:30 a.m. But you can imagine the anxiety and the frustration that set in on that team. To keep the spirit of that team, the spirit of that locker room uplifted was a challenge indeed. People began to point fingers. The offense blamed the defense, and the defense blamed the offense, and then the offense and the defense blamed the special team. And so it was everybody's fault and no one's fault at the same time. Coaches began to argue. Players began to rebel against coaches and ownership and leaders. Has anybody ever been in a situation like this before? Where everything seems to be going downhill? Well, for those of us that were on the team that were believers, this was our harvest field. For that particular time, at that particular moment, the Lord called us to be there. To be a witness, if you would, an advocate, agents of encouragement to the people in the locker room and to the people upstairs. And when fear and anxiety and frustration started to set in, we would just begin to encourage our teammates in the Word. Fear not. Don't be anxious for anything, with a head and not to tail. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And it's amazing How when you begin to speak the word and the promises of God, how things begin to change. Has anybody witnessed that in your life before? Well, why do I say that? Begin to speak these promises and God's word and these principles that we stand for over your community, over your families, over this state, over our nation. And let's see what begins to change. Because a lot of times when you're tired, a lot of times when lethargy sets in, a lot of times when fear grabs hold of you, a lot of times when you become apathetic, you don't want to speak. Anybody been there before? Yeah. You don't want to be faithful. You don't want to go knock on doors. You don't want to go to the phone bank. You don't want to believe that it is going to be okay, but I'm a living witness that it is. Yeah. Question is, are you willing? The question is, who are you bringing with you? The guy that sat next to me in my locker, he's on Sunday Night Football today. His name is Rodney Harrison with Tony Dungy and Dan Patrick. Anybody ever watch football in here? His locker was right next to mine. And every day we would speak the promise. We were 1-15. Everybody's job was in jeopardy. Everybody was afraid. And we would speak promises. We would speak faith. We would let our actions speak. We would let our mouths sometimes be closed, but our lives and our testimony will speak faith and encouragement. Everybody with me? We all have the opportunity in our state and in our sphere of influence. Come out from amongst those that are just like you. Because there's a lot out there who need your encouragement, who need your voice, who need your shoulder, who need your wisdom, who need your encouragement. Are y'all with me? Amen. See, we look at the TV and say, man, this is a mess. America's going to hell in a handbasket. That's easy to say, but what are we going to do about it? It's the question. Step out. Step up. Be salt and light. Be the righteous flavor. Let those principles that you've lived by for all of these years begin to ring loudly. Shout it from the rooftop and see what happens in this country. All things are possible to him who believes, including the restoration of America back to her godly heritage and culture. America is exceptional, Ms. JoAnn. America is beautiful. America is special. A lot of people say, well, America is too far gone. But not me. As long as I have the breath of life, and the Lord lets me see another day, I believe that we can return. Amen. How about you? Amen. And I'm encouraged, one, because Jesus is still on the throne. Yes. Amen. And I'm encouraged because of people like you who are willing to step up, who are willing to step out, who are willing to speak up, and who are the salt and light in our society today. Our country is in a crucial spot. There's a great battle going on for the soul of our country, make no mistake. But it's not between political parties or factions within political parties. The media may paint it that way. But this battle is a battle between right and wrong. Amen. A battle between good and evil. A battle between darkness and light. That's what this battle is. But the Lord has called us to be lights in the midst of darkness. And we have a great opportunity to be so. So be encouraged today. Don't give up. Don't be discouraged. Don't let lethargy keep you at home. Don't let apathy keep you from making that phone call. Don't let anxiety or frustration keep you from writing that letter or walking that door or walking that block and knocking on the door for these valuable, godly men and women that are running for these races. You have something right here in the room for you today that are advocating on your behalf. Well, that's all I have. My heart is glad because I'm here. But I want to encourage y'all today. The Lord is faithful.
Amen.
Are you willing to trust and obey him? And to step out, to step up, to take it up one more notch? Because his word is true. And he said that if we repent and turn from our wicked ways, that he would hear from heaven. Well, it's time to start shouting in America today. All eyes in the world are on America. And in my opinion, all eyes in America are on Texas. We got a great opportunity to revitalize and to rebuild and to restore the fabric and the foundation and the meaning of righteousness and morality and virtue, all those things we talked about in our country today. For those that are coming behind us long after we're gone, they'll benefit by the decisions we make today. Amen. God bless y'all.
And so we need to be people that won't tolerate the culture rot and the decline in our culture, and we need to stand up for those things that transcend time, Scott. So I want to give you a book that reminds me of you. The title is called Relentless, the Power You Need to Never Give Up. Thank you. Spend a little time with you guys today because, as you may have heard, I'm going to be in Iowa next month for Ted Cruz. And I hope that you all will take a little time to come out Wednesday. I know that, it gets dark earlier, and if it's cold again by Wednesday. And what is this with the tropical weather? I mean, like one day it's sweaters, the next day you're turning on the air conditioner. And so anyway, hopefully next Wednesday, if it's cold or if it's rainy and it gets dark too early for you, that you'll come out anyway to Canton, because I want you to come out to hear Raphael Cruz. Raphael is such a dear friend of ours, and he's such an encouragement. I haven't seen Raphael probably in about 8 months, I guess. He and I text back and forth every now and then, and I thank him for what he's doing, because he's going across the country rallying Christians to stand up, not sit around and feel sorry for yourself. Be grouchy all the time about the junk you see on TV. But get out and fight for this country. And Raphael certainly does that. So I would encourage you all to come out. And I want to thank Larry Smith. Larry, thank you for the training, Sheriff, that you're doing for people, because y'all may not know this, but he has people calling him from all over, and I'm getting calls. How can we get Sheriff Smith to bring training to our county? And I said, what's wrong with your sheriff? But anyway, the first training out at TJC, we had about 250 people. We had no idea how many people we're going to have that morning, but that Saturday morning, one of the lieutenants came out to my truck to help me carry refreshments in. He said, we got over 200 people here. I said, well, it sounds like somebody's going to be going back to get some more refreshments. And we were happy to do that. And do you know that day, they drank 2 60-cup pots of coffee and another 55 gallons of coffee that day. Can you imagine that? I mean, it was unbelievable the kind of, we had some coffee drinkers in there, gave a lot of breaks, but there were people there who were respectful of law enforcement and eager to hear what Sheriff Smith's people had to say. And then...
Where were you last Saturday?
Where was I last Saturday? I was in Grapevine, Texas.
Yeah, what were you doing?
What was I doing? Man, you're being impertinent today. What do you think? You know what I was doing. What are you doing?
Look behind you.
Now that's scary. No wonder Michael Quinn Sullivan texted me and he said, whatever you do, remember on Friday that Schaefer made me do it. And I texted back, what? And he said, just remember Schaefer's your target. Yes, I got an award, and in fact, Lieutenant Dan, as I call him, when I got this, yes, my sword's back here, yeah. So I have a sword and a gun. Anyway, yes, I did get a leadership award at the Empower Texans Gala last Saturday, and I appreciate it very much. But when I went on stage to get it, Lieutenant Dan said, that's kind of scary, JoAnn, you and a sword. I said, only the people who need to be scared know who they are and they know why. So anyway, thank you, Matt. But anyway, as I was saying, we need to really support law enforcement now because they are targets. We have kind of like a throwback to the 60s culture that have decided they don't want to respect law enforcement. And so Sheriff Smith had a big training, was it Tuesday? Out at Green Acres, and he had over 300 people for the open carry and active shooter training. So I hope you all will come out and even invite friends in January to come hear that training, because we live in a dangerous time and we really never know when we're going to be faced with that. And I learned a lot. I thought I knew what to do, but I learned a lot. Larry's got a 30-year veteran of law enforcement that teaches most of that training, and it's excellent. So I'm going to take some questions from you guys today. I will tell you that Byron Cook will be putting out some information. Byron Cook had a fraud hearing yesterday in Austin. I didn't get to go. I was going to go. I didn't get to go because I met with the investigator, special prosecutor, and investigator that are assigned to the Smith County case, and spent time with them. And but I will tell you that Dale and Mary Hulls, which many of you all know from Clear Lake Tea Party, went down to the hearing, and it was one of those hearings that wasn't substantive. It was a hearing to, I guess, cover the real record, an attempt to try to cover the real record of Byron Cook. But whenever I get that report out, we will send it out. But I want to encourage you all, before I take the first question, to please pay close attention to the challenge. You know, I can work my heart out for you guys, and we got a lot of people in this room that work very hard for Grassroots America. And I would say this, since 2009, the Lord has blessed us to come a very, very long way. Our endorsement is sought after. Our endorsement means something. And it should always mean something, because we have a very high standard of endorsement, and we always should. And I'm going to tell you all that sometimes in elections, candidates and their consultants get a little sloppy with the facts. I'm going to remind you all of something, that telling a half-truth is what?
A lie.
That's right. Or he had to scold some people about wandering out into these half-truths, Scott. I find that a person of boldness and of principle need not do any more than speak the truth and speak their heart. If they've made a mistake, they need to own up to it, not try to cover it up, because a cover-up is always worse than the deed. Most of the time, worse than the deed. So on this challenge, we need to raise some money. We need to raise some money. I'll tell you, my good friend Michael Quinn Sullivan up there, you know what kind of a challenge he's got going on now? $75,000 challenge. They're going to raise that money. They'll raise every bit of that and more. And I love working with Michael. We're not in Power, Texas. But I can tell you that our endorsement is valued in this state. I wouldn't be overrun with calls from judicial candidates, railroad commission candidates, state board of education candidates. And by the way, where's Mary Lou Bruner? Mary Lou Bruner, thank you so much for standing up to run for the state board of education. They just handed me some information about Mary Lou. We'll be talking to Mary Lou more. But Mary Lou Bruner will be challenging a man that shouldn't be holding office. His name is Thomas Ratliff. Mary Lou, we're very proud of you. Mary Lou is a long-time educator. Mary Lou's smart. She knows how to evaluate textbooks, and Mary Lou knows how to do the right thing. Thank you, Mary Lou. But, you know, the last several years we've had a lot of volunteers to give out door hangers, take door hangers across the district. We constantly have people in other counties asking us, can you tell us what constable, what commissioner to vote for in our county? I said, well, I can tell you about any of the federal candidates or the statewide candidates that are on your ballot, but I can't tell you about your local officials because our local officials run us nuts enough in Smith County. We don't need to be going into your county, but I will help you figure out how to analyze your own candidates. But friends, we can't do this. Excuse me. We can't do this on a hope. And boy, I wish you luck, JoAnn, getting the word out. Wish you luck at that. I need y'all to step up for this $2,500 challenge. It was an act of absolute kindness for somebody to step up and to offer that $2,500. And I want you all to help me meet that. You know, I don't beg you for money every time I get up in front of you, but I am asking you to do a little extra and to help us meet that $2,500 challenge. I'd hate to go back to that kind donor and say, you know, we just couldn't make it. We just couldn't do it. That would be heartbreaking for this individual, and it wouldn't make me any happy either. So, anyway, so let's have some fun questions today. You can ask me about political issues. You can ask me about Ted's campaign. You can ask me what my favorite color is. You can ask me what makes me happy. You can ask me about what makes me mad. I bet you already know the answer to that. So anyway, let's have some questions.
And we're going to do it a little different this time. Instead of holding up cards, either James or I'll come to you with a mic.
Yeah, and I'm gonna come down there. Will the microphone act up?
Got one here. Yeah, we got a question right here. JoAnn, before we leave Larry Smith, when he first ran, we would call from out in the county to get the sheriff's attention, and it didn't come. And Larry promised that he would spread deputies throughout the county and they would respond. And boy, has that worked.
Yes, it has.
The other thing is I went to that training that you served all that coffee at. And Larry has hired some real experts. So, I mean, part of evaluating a boss is how well he hires.
That's right.
And Larry has done a fabulous job of that. So I just want to say thank you to Larry, and I look forward to you running again, and I am a supporter.
Thank you so much. You're right. I do have a follow-up. Now, wait just a second, because Matt's trying to tell me something I need to know. know what?
If you're down here wandering around, I can't film you.
You don't need to worry about that, because I'm sure people are not going to care about what I said today, other people. If they weren't here, guess what?
You're
They
wrong.
missed out.
They do care.
Well, okay, I'll try to stand right here, but I'll try to be good. All right, Matt. Matt, you're a wiseacre today. Do you know it? And you know why Matt is so excited about Christmas this year, particularly? Because he is a beautiful baby girl. I mean, she is just adorable. She looks like Jason.
Woo! And number 2 on the way.
Is that right? Number 2 on the way. Oh, my. Well, and I will tell you, when I was at the Empower Texans Gala last week, I found out that Matt Rinaldi and his wife are expecting their first baby, and I recommended you. I said, Matt Rinaldi, we have a lot of Matts in the legislature. And so I said, well, you know, Matt, if you had a conversation with Schaefer, he goes, JoAnn, I'm going door to door. I got a competitive race. I can't be thinking about that now. And I said, well, I suspect your wife is going to be reminding you here pretty soon.
Tinderholt's wife, too.
Is that right? Whoa, lots of little babies from these conservatives. Okay, Bob, question.
What a blessing for Matt. That's
Yes.
just fantastic.
Yes, indeed.
Anyway, this is a follow-up on Larry. His class is online. I had a call this morning saying it's just fantastic.
Yes.
And so it's 4.5 hours, and but it's there. And also his forum debate last night against Chris Green, who failed to show up, is online. And each of the topics is broken down. It's in a playlist. Each of the topics that were answered will get, you know, his opinion on all that.
That's great, and we will
it's
post
all online,
that. Good.
and you can see it at.
Yes.
Somehow the link always goes to twitter.com/politicalbrew. If you go there, you'll see the most recent thing when you click that link.
Okay, very good. That's good information.
JoAnn, I just had a quick thing. When you're talking about that matching amount, will you just remind us again, with those in the room, who to write the check out to? Can we hand it in at the back of the room?
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
through when? Through December? What's our time
Yes,
frame?
thank you. Well, we need to match this by December 31st. Okay, everybody understand that? So if you gave $10 today, you would actually be raising $20 for us. You may always write checks out to Grassroots America, We the People. You can hand them out to, give them to Jim Snow. Or you can pay online. There's a link online. If you go to our website, and I hope that you will start going there more frequently, because we're going to be posting our election information, the endorsements, some links to report cards, scorecards on the candidates. Sometimes candidates, some things that they've written, some of their papers, some of their statements they've released will be there. So Becky will start helping me populate that. So go to the website often. We try to update that. And we have somebody, a professional, that's helping us with some communications. And so you're going to see some new things from us. And here's the deal. I know that everybody hates email. Heaven only knows I get tired of it. I probably get about 5,000 emails a week. It's hard to keep up with that because those are updates on different news sources I look at, plus their personal requests from across the state. People asking me a question, will you check into this, will you check into that? Will you tell Ted Cruz to say this? Will you tell him to stop wearing that orange tie? Will you know, as if I talk to Ted every day. And so anyway, people send me a variety of things. But I appreciate people not sending me recipes. There's no time for that. In fact, if somebody made a snarky comment about, you know, JoAnn said she's bringing cookies today, but she probably gets Sam's, Mr. Sam to help her. Well, that's true. Y'all know me very well. I did. Mr. Sam made the cookies. Sam's Wholesale Club. So, anyway, so I appreciate that. I appreciate the encouraging emails. But as always, if you try to contact me about something you don't hear from me, if it's really urgent, but the definition of urgent really has meaning, so don't tell me something's urgent when it's really not. But anyway, you can text me on my cell phone and say, hey, I sent you something in the email and I really need a response. And I will do everything I can to help to answer you on that. But anyway, so you can write a check to Grassroots America with people, or you can go online and go through PayPal or whatever all that is on there.
Okay, got one more?
Yes, Miss Ethel.
I want to just really thank and praise God first. I'm kind of emotional right now. I want to thank Pastor Scott Turner for that awesome message.
Amen.
Today. But what my question has to do with, and you know, as women, we're emotional, we'll cry. I'm going to try not to.
Mm-hmm.
But what my question is, Sister JoAnn, no, I just thank God for you so much. I'm thankful. Thank Barbara for connecting with Grassroots. And my question is, I admire you. I see what you go through. I hear so much negativity towards you. I defend you so much.
Thank you.
And what my question is, how do you allow God to keep you standing, to keep you going through the midst of your challenges? And the reason I'm asking that question, I want a golden nugget of wisdom from you, because I'm fighting a fight right now in North Tyler for the children and their parents.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm being so beat down. And in North Tyler, it's considered to be the worst part of Tyler. South Tyler, the schools have more benefits than North Tyler. And right now, at this moment, Dogan Middle School is in a crisis. I was at the parent meeting with the principal, the new principal, Tuesday. And out of 100-some 8th graders, only 3 are passing right now. So when she met with them and the parents, and she told her this, they were under the gun. So they moved her, Vanessa Holmes, from John Tyler High School, assistant principal of 9 years, to Dogan to turn it around. And people say, you got a sinking ship. She told the parents out of her own mouth, I had spoken with her out of her own mouth, she told these parents, your children are disrespecting me. They say they want to fail because they want the school to close. They won't do their work. They're fighting. They're keeping us undercover, but it's happening. I talked to the police officer there and to the principal. We're going to have an emergency meeting with her, with Christine Fushel and her on Monday at 4. The school board meeting at 6:15. I'm begging, I'm pleading for every person in this room that has a heart for what's going on to show up at that school board meeting on Monday at 6:15 at Plywood. We're in a crisis. And JoAnn, I just thank God for you so much. Can you give some nuggets of wisdom how God keeps you standing so that I can continue? It's hard. I trust God. I know God has called me to this, but a lot of times it's the people, and supposedly godly people, who are our worst challenges. People should be standing and praising God for you. I'm serious. Because you're risking your health and your life for us, for the people.
Thank you.
So give me some kind of golden of wisdom.
Okay. Well, it would take a long time for me to tell you about the journey through Tyler ISD for me, because that's kind of how I got started back going on 24 years ago. But let me just tell you something, Ethel, and everybody here. Look, when God calls you to do a thing, you don't have to ask anybody's permission to do the right thing. You know that? You don't have to ask anybody's permission to do what he called you to do. And you don't have to make any apologies for it either. And I will tell you that when you're doing that thing that God has put on you to do, you can't not do it. I've tried. Boy, I have tried to quit so many times in my life, but he will not let you quit. The other thing is, you know, the enemy will send you discouragers. He will send you some of those people like Job's miserable friends. At just the right moment, he'll send that. The enemy will. And if he can't sabotage you with your known enemies, people who have declared to be opposed to you, he will send you miserable comforters in the form of, he'll send people that'll, speak against what you're doing, say, you really shouldn't be doing that, or you did it the wrong way, or you had the wrong look on your face, or whatever. He'll send you discouragement through family and friends. So you have to know deep down in your heart what it is that you're supposed to do. And you just have to do the best you can do every day, Ethel. Ask God to give you the words to say, when to speak, when to shut your mouth. because the timing is right, and he knows the right timing for everything. And you just have to do the best you can and leave the results to him. You know, that's it. It's not any more complicated than that. But I can tell you, as a person who used to walk into school board meetings, this was back when we had school board meetings at Birdwell Elementary School in that auditorium. And I remember it so well I could still picture it. My little Kyle, who is big Kyle now, little Kyle then, was about 4 or 5 years old. And I was home educating him. So, you know, I'd bring him in. He had the coloring books, the stamp, you know, the little sticker book, all that sort of stuff. And he would sit there. If he wouldn't even touch the floor, he'd just sit there and he'd do all of his little thing while Mom watched the school board and occasionally spoke. And he knew that when Mom was up speaking, he was to sit there and be quiet. So people began to remark, "Oh, you've got such an obedient child." Well, imagine that. Because he knows what happens if he disobeys Mom, right? So anyway, and his dad would come pick him up when he got off work. He'd come pick him straight up out of the chair, put him over his shoulder, take him home, and you know, and we would be in those school board meetings. They would start at 6. We would sometimes still be there at midnight. This is when Jose Feliciano was on there, and I have to tell you, he was such a fighter for what was right, for the children to be able to read. And I will tell you what, if people had listened to Jose Feliciano back in the 90s, you would not be seeing that problem you're seeing right there today. Because those children didn't wake up one morning and decide to be rebellious. They did not wake up one day and just suddenly not be able to read and compute math and all that. That happened way down the line there. And there are people here in this organization that have been trying to tell those people that we pay 6-figure salaries to that they were failing. It is a moral obligation, because every day that a child sits in a failing school is a day that their future gets darker. And there's no amount of welfare and bleeding heart liberals that's going to fix it for that job. God bless you for what you're doing, Ethel. Just have hope. Just stay strong. Because, you know, when I walk into those school board meetings, it was an audible hiss. I mean, you just have to get to the point where you just go, you know what, Lord, I'm going because you told me to go. And if these people hate me, it's just going to have to be too bad, because I'm just here because I'm trying to stand for the truth and what's right here. So God bless you for what you're doing, Ethel. And y'all, please try to go to the aid of Sister Ethel here and help her. All right.
So this is a follow-up on Ethel's question, comment. The Lord hooked us up over at New Days and Promise Academy, the first Christian school in North Tyler in history. Tonight at 5:30, these little kids like this, they can barely walk, are going to put on a show that's just going to just brighten your heart. And if you want to see the way education ought to be, you need to come to Promise. That's just north of Salvation Army at Gentry and Broadway. And Pastor Garrett and Sarah Cumming are the ones responsible for that over there. And we have a coffee shop, so if you ever see a Ted Cruz car parked in the circle there, just stop in. And we got a TV with all the internet stuff you ever want to do. So the black folks in North Tyler are understanding what it means to be a constitutional conservative, because conservatism has got a really bad, opinion to those folks. But when you really start talking the Constitution and getting back to our founders, they understand. So we're making great inroads, and it's all because of John Furlow. I got to tell this one quick story. Non-kinetic warfare. If you see something broke, fix it. I saw a flag that was dangling by one grommet. And I said, I didn't ask anybody. I walked up there, and the rope is broken, but the flag's dangling. And I try to bring it down, and it comes down 1 foot, 2 foot. The rope is frayed like a little thread. And if I break it, I got to go get a bucket truck. And I'm sitting there fiddling with that thing, 20 minutes, nothing's happening. I had my camera on. I said, Lord, does this have to be so hard? And it started raining, and that flag came right down. So the Lord will make it happen.
Any more questions? There must be something. You're not going to get to see JoAnn for about, what, a month, 6 weeks? So what else do you need? What's your favorite color? Just asking? I'm going to ask the
Like
nice
this
question.
color blue.
Turquoise blue?
Yes.
See, I'm going to ask the nice questions because I saw the sword.
Right.
So,
Speaking of, do you have any plans for that sword?
well, Kyle seems to have been well disciplined without it.
The mister, as I call him, is going to hang it in my office. I'm not going to wear it or anything.
Boring.
Is he going to use a file to flatten the edge first?
Well, you know, somebody said you need to sharpen that sword. I said, well, you know, the sword I carry is already sharp.
Amen. I think also, now I'm going to sound, if y'all know my mom, and Matt, you have a question. If y'all know my mom, you've heard her say, how can I pray for you? So we are your home base. And while you're gone, these next few weeks, how specifically we can pray for the mister, and your home that you leave behind, how specifically can we be carrying you in prayer?
Well, a funny kind of thing is that the nice JoAnn shows up in Iowa because we're going to be doing this communal living thing, and I'm not.
No,
I'm not much on sharing my space. My girlfriends that are here probably saying nasty things about me under their breath because I don't share rooms with them when we go somewhere. I have to have my own room because here's my deal. I work very late. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I have this knowing that I have to write something, I will turn on the light, go to a laptop, and start writing. I like coffee in the morning, but I don't like conversation in the morning. I don't like singing in the morning. So if you sing to me in the morning, that's not a good thing. I like to have my quiet time with the Lord, and then I like to catch up on the news. So that's just me. I'll talk to you probably about 9 o'clock. Before 9 o'clock, you don't want to have a conversation with me. But anyway, no, and we have apartments. Just to tell you what we've got set up in Iowa is the cruise campaign has rented part of a dormitory for a community college. And they started out with 48 units. And an apartment has a bedroom with 2 twin beds in it, and it has a sleeper sofa out in the living area. So allegedly, you can have 3 people living to a room, to an apartment. Well, we have been so swamped with volunteers that want to go to Iowa to walk for Ted. We are approaching 500 strike force members. And little Miss Hunter Ann back there will be going next week to Iowa. So anyway, and I've had 3 teams up there already. Last Saturday was the kickoff. And so we've had so many requests, and I've tried to tell people, look, it's kind of like running a hotel, because they go, well, why do they need to know when I'm coming and when I'm going and who I want to stay with? And I said, well, it's kind of like running a hotel, because if you show up and they have all the rooms filled, that's going to be messy and difficult. And so it's in Des Moines. And so I said, you know, you just need to let people know. So trying to extract from people, you know, to get people to follow instructions. So let me segue into one of the things that drives me nuts. I might as well go ahead and say it. Is people who don't follow instructions. I now know why the 1st and 2nd grade teacher, the thing she would just drum into us all the time is, at the top of the paper are your instructions. Read and follow the instructions. Apparently, about 90% of the human population missed that. Because I don't care if you put it, everybody says, you know, everybody wants you to put information. This is another thing that drives me nuts. Everybody wants you to condense down the most important things they need to know in a space that will fit on a bumper sticker. I will remind you, the Bible will not fit on a bumper sticker. There are important things that get written that cannot possibly go on a bumper sticker. But if you decide you're going to condense down what people need to know in 3 easy steps, they are compelled to go from step 1 to 3 and ask you why things didn't work out very well. Because they left out step 2. And then you have to fix that. So doing a cleanup on aisle 9 is not one of my favorite things to do, but sometimes I find myself doing that when people don't follow instructions. Anyway, but thank you for that. Just pray for good health, for, like I said, patience, and a sweet nature when people really need it.
We have 2 more questions, and we'll also be praying for those around you in the morning.
Thank
so.
you. Yes.
Go ahead.
JoAnn, we received this nice Christmas postcard from Texas Citizens Coalition and Gary Gates. Who is Texas Citizens Coalition? Who is Gary Gates? And how much attention should we be paying to this?
Well, I don't know Mr. Gates personally, but I will tell you that that organization tends to have a different definition of conservative than we do. You understand that? I find, in fact, there are quite a number of new organizations and PACs. In fact, we discovered another one last week that is a cadre of Austin attorneys. And I forget the name of it, Matt, but I'll send it to you. A group of Austin attorneys that have come up with some new, I mean, it's got conservative in the name, and they aren't. They're trying to get all the Tea Party organizations to join their organizations and send them money. And I went, well, good luck with that. Because all the people I know are trying to raise a little money to keep doing what they do. But I will tell you that that group has asked me if they could come speak to Grassroots America, and I declined. Does that say all I need to say about that? Okay.
It's not, that organization is not one that grew organically. It's being driven by Mr. Gates.
By the family. It's a family operation.
Yes, yes. No, that's a different one.
Yeah.
Is it Texas Coalition? Yeah. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And our last question.
JoAnn, it's so great to face a mighty warrior. It's a privilege for those who've been on the lines for a long, long time. And we have the great gift of respect that we have, and we don't want to take lightly the gift of prayer.
Right.
And we sometimes use those words so easily, but this is a serious business. And I really want to give that challenge also to the call to prayer, to intercede as we've never interceded before.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to thank you for being a standard bearer in the midst of times like these. The question I have is very personal, and I don't know how much you can answer it, but it matters to me every day. If you can share with us how we can pray for your health. The battle is on for most of us for our health, in some ways to take us down. I don't know if you can do that, but I tell you what, it matters to us. And sometimes because you are such a mighty warrior, we might just forget. I don't want to forget.
Well, and I will tell you that I have to remember an enormous amount of information because I have to be ready to answer on local issues, things that are going on locally, things that are going on at the state level, and things that are going on in the presidential race in particular. Because I will get a call from, national media and say so-and-so. So every day, one of the first things I read are all the press releases, all the policy statements, everything that come out of the Cruz campaign. Because Ted Cruz asked me to play a role in his campaign. I am a volunteer. I am not getting paid to do it. But that does not negate my responsibility to take seriously what he asked me to do. And to be asked to go to Iowa to be a surrogate speaker for him, to get people, particularly as we get closer to the caucus, is something that is a privilege because I highly respect him. And I know what a godly man he is. And I want to say this right now. I had a friend in Houston that, this is one of those things, Pat, where, the enemy will send you discouragers, that took the bill that Ted and Senator Sessions put out yesterday on the H-1B visas, which is to reform them. And I won't get into the policy stuff with you today. But I had a friend in Houston who sent me an email that said, I don't know who's writing this CRAP, But this is worthless. And you know, I am happy for people to have a difference of opinion on anything. Happy to debate people on policy, on issues, and to talk about the differences in a candidate. But for heaven's sakes, is a candidate worth people hating on each other? Is it? Is that what we're supposed to be about? Are we supposed to say, well, you know, I think Donald Trump is the guy to, you know, put the country back together? Okay, well, if you believe that, that's great. And my good friend Katrina Pearson is the national spokesperson for Trump. Katrina is doing it, and she has every right to do that. I still love her. And people go, aren't you mad at her? Why should I be mad at Katrina? Katrina's doing what she believes is right for her. She's a single mom. She needs a paycheck. I'm not gonna trash her because she, you know, and she still, I mean, she supports, she likes Ted. She cares about Ted. I mean, she's been on the team, was on the Senate team with us from the very beginning. So I'm just saying to you, is you know, when somebody throws that kind of thing up in your face, your flesh wants to what? Swing back. Say that's a provocation that's going to do nothing but weaken you so that the enemy can start eating you alive. So leave all that stuff behind you. And when people say mean things about a candidate that you support and you like very much, try to have a decent, civil conversation about differences, and don't go burning bridges. I've told people, look, if we have a difference on candidates, if there's any bridge burning that goes on, you'll be burning the bridge. It won't be me. Because we need to be on the same side trying to fight for what's right. So, Pat, that I would be able to retain the information that I need to retain, and that every person that is on the ground for Ted Cruz in Iowa, that the Lord would give them his favor when they go to the door, when they talk on the phone, or when we have people come in the office. Favor, God's favor. If you don't have God's favor, you might as well stay at home. Anybody else?
We've got 5 minutes here, so we're going to go to the last question maybe. We'll see if it's a quick one. We may squeeze one more in, but last question.
This is very quick. Can you share with us a little bit about Ted's financial situation in terms of campaign fundraising? And he seems to be taking a tortoise versus the hare approach in his strategy so far, because he's jumping way ahead of what everybody thought at this time. Right. Can you tell us a little bit of his secret on this?
Sure.
If you can.
Well, yes, it is a campaign plan that was put together in prayer. He and his dad and his campaign team have been praying about the campaign strategy for a very long time, and pray often. He prays with his staff, both his Senate staff and with his campaign staff often. And it is a model that we used for his Senate race in Texas, because nobody, if you remember back, nobody gave Ted Cruz any, they thought, oh, he is absolutely, you know, Ted tells the story that he was, after you took out the margin of error, he was like -2 in the polls. But it is that he is able to capture the hopes and dreams of people, that America can survive and that she can be what she's supposed to be, that she can be that shining city on a hill. He is smart. He knows the Constitution, but he is not somebody that is going to go take personal shots at somebody else. He just is not going to do that. So he's very deliberative. And if you all have seen the interview, excuse me, that he did with Glenn Beck, you know, they talked about the fact that, and I'm forgetting the term now, it just left my brain, but he has not a photographic memory. Audiographic memory, so he remembers exactly everything you said, the order you said it in, the tone of voice, the inflection, the pauses, and everything. And so he has a great memory, so if he remembers that McConnell made a promise to him, you can take that to the bank. But the fundraising is great. Now, I've had some people say to me, JoAnn, why do I get so many fundraising emails from Ted Cruz? So because it takes a lot of money to run a national campaign. Yeah, but I just sent him $200 last week. I said, well, we don't have people that are sitting around going, okay, Miss Jones in Hope, Arkansas gave $200 last week, so we're not going to send her an email today. That's not the way it works. So you do what I do. I just go delete. You know, I give as often as I can give to all kinds of candidates, but if they send me an extra email, I don't get upset about it. Don't be easily offended. But the campaign, the fundraising is going very, very well. He does not have a high burn rate at this point that other campaigns have that are, you know, and I have had a lot of people ask me, well, I've maxed out how much I can give to his campaign for the primary, so what do I do next? Well, I've told people you can give, there are about 3 Ted Cruz PACs. I can't talk to the PACs. PACs and the people with the campaign can't talk to each other. I can tell you who they are. And also the people that are traveling to Iowa. The Cruz campaign is taking care of the housing, but we're taking care of our travel and our food, our accommodations. So if somebody wants to donate to the teams that are going up, that's another way that you can give. And I've got a generous donor in Longview that's trying to raise some money for the teams going up. Anything else? Okay. Well, Merry Christmas to all of you. I appreciate you so much. I hope that you have a healthy and a very peaceful and blessed Christmas. And remember, Jesus is the reason. Amen.